So I think it's cool we introduced Beavis and Butthead to kids who hadn't necessarily heard or seen it.
Let us begin.
Ladies and gentlemen,
fantastic show for you this evening.
we got a great show for you.
We got a really great show. Stick around. You don't want to stick around.
I would like to start by congratulating you on this 50th season and thanking you so much for your time. I mean, I'm a huge
Thank
fan
you.
of the
It was
show.
all me. I am responsible for SNL's 50
At all.
years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
It's cool to be a part of it. It's definitely cool to be a small part of this very legendary achievement of the show for being on the air for 50 years. It's wild.
right. I wanted to ask you about that specifically. I mean, there's a lot going on around SNL at the moment. There's a movie coming out related to the show in a few days. Some new
Oh,
cast members are joining
right.
the family. Of course, you're celebrating your 50th season. Does coming back for this season in particular feel in any way different in contrast with what you've done for the show in the past?
Right. I mean, there's always a level of excitement and stuff about what's going on in the news, but this year, like you said, in particular, it being the 50th season and that season 50 coincides with an election, because when there's an election going on, it always just feels a little more like there's more kind of eyes on the show and there's just kind of an energy around it. So it definitely feels different, but in a fun way, in an exciting way.
Right.
But it's at the end of the day, it still feels like, every other season in terms of the work of it and the schedule, but it'll be a special season. I'm very excited.
Well, we're all really excited. I actually wanted to dive in a little bit about the work process behind a show. I'd love it if you told me what that time gap between ending a season and kicking off the next one looks like to you. Is it challenging in any way to pick back up the structure that a show like this requires
Right.
every?
I mean, in terms of the time and lack of sleep, that's always a little jarring when you're thrust back into it. But you kind of ease back into it and then you get used to it. But it's definitely nice to get some sleep and have normal hours, because I tend to kind of get super focused and lose track of time, and then sleep is kind of sacrificed.
Yeah.
But just getting back into it, I definitely the first week kind of feels like the first week of school. That's the best way I can equate it to, where you're like, yeah, I guess I'm doing homework and we're opening our books and we're going, but it still feels like, are we really back? But definitely by the first show on Saturday is when it really kicks in, like, okay, we're back, we're doing this again, we're gearing back up. So
Right.
the first week always has a first week of school vibe for me.
And it's always really exciting to see what you guys pull off, even the first week. You've
Yeah.
helped create some of the most iconic characters within the show. When writing, are there times where,
Thank
yeah, I mean, it's true. When
I
writing, are there times where you base a character or create a sketch thinking about somebody in particular, or is it just finding the perfect person for that piece after you've done writing?
Oh, right. I mean, sometimes you'll see something, particularly like on the news, like local news is the best. That's kind of the most fun place for me to find inspiration, just because sometimes you'll see some kooky characters get interviewed on sometime on those local telecasts, or sometimes there'll be little errors that kind of inspire an idea. But sometimes you'll see someone either like in life, particularly at airports, and you're like, this person could be a character. Oftentimes too, I'll see someone and I'll go, oh, and I'll think of a fellow cast member. Like I'll
Right.
go like Heidi. I saw a Heidi character at the airport today and kind of describe the person. So
Right.
inspiration, I think, come from everywhere.
Yeah, well, I actually wanted to dive in a little more about that because I want to utilize the Beavis and Butthead sketch in particular for this question. Because when talking about it with my friends and family the day after that sketch aired, I noticed that
Trying
some
to
people,
explain it.
yeah, trying to explain it. No, but some people didn't really know who Beavis and Butthead were before the sketch aired.
Right.
Feel found your work in it and Ryan's work to be extremely funny. I mean, my question is, when writing about something or some public figure or a character that we might know in particular, did you ever consider finding a balance between making that sketch work between the people who might know and understand the character and the
Right.
people who might not?
Right. Good question. I mean, I think we tried to explain it enough to where if you had never heard of Beavis and Butthead, you at least knew they were real cartoon characters. And so you were able to understand the kind of basic comedic premise that this man was being distracted while he was trying to talk about something serious, because that's ultimately what it is. Like, something serious is happening and there's something silly going on. But and we also look insane. Like, I think if you were a kid, you didn't know what Beavis and Butthead were, and you saw a man, like, especially at first seeing Ryan in that with his longer nose and his blonde pompadour, like, we thought the idea of human cartoons was funny because we were trying to strike the balance where we look like cartoons, but also look like people that could exist in reality. So we thought it was visually interesting for, people who had never heard of it. And people have told me like their kids saw it and just thought it was funny. And then after the fact, watched Beavis and Butthead. So I think it's cool we introduced Beavis and Butthead to kids who hadn't necessarily heard or seen it, because it was a big deal. Like, when I was a kid, Beavis and Butthead, I was like in the peak demo for them too. I was like an 11-year-old boy when they came out, it was perfect.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Mikey, I had a fantastic time talking to you. That's my time. Thank you so much for your
You as
time.
well. Thank you
And
for chatting.
yeah, see you Saturday, I guess.
Yeah, I'll see you Saturday.
Saturday Night Live, temporada de aniversario, en vivo. Estreno el 28 de septiembre. Suscríbete ya.